Hey there. So, for the tens, if not hundreds, of Studio HFL fans, I'd like to say hello, welcome back. Here I am finally editing and getting these interviews out. Now, early on, I had sponsors. I wouldn't have been able to have quite the success for the podcast that I did without them. Of course, that includes, in no particular order, Eastman Music Company and S.E. Shires, Chop Saver, Austin Custom Brass, Hammond Design, Pickett, Blackburn, Messina Covers, and also to some Patreon subscribers. So thank you ever so much. Oh, yeah. If during the interview you are so moved to like and subscribe, then please do. Don't worry, this is my only ask. You won't see or hear about that again. So, now without further ado, on with the interview.
Kenny, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. What's up?
Oh, blood pressure, and other things.
Yeah.
This is kind of cool, making the world smaller, doing stuff like this, but then realizing it's already been small when, you have common friends like Mark Ortwine, right?
Mark, yeah, that's plenty. We got
Great.
both teach together in Indianapolis.
Yeah. Now, when you say together this semester, I don't think anybody's teaching together, right?
Yeah.
He's probably doing remote as well, but yeah, I haven't seen him for a while. I think he's busy with the ISO has a brass band.
Yeah.
That's doing some work. At least they're doing something, right?
Yeah, he said he's doing a few things here and there. But yeah, it's crazy times, man.
Yeah. So I'm here in Indy. Where are you exactly?
I am in Midtown Manhattan. Hell's Kitchen.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how long have you lived there?
I've lived in this apartment since December 13th, 2002. So I've been in this apartment for a while. Before that, I lived in Brooklyn for quite a number of years. I moved to New York in 1989.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I just finished an interview with an Elvis impersonator who lives over in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Talked a little bit about the Yankees and and pizza and all that sort of thing. So
yeah.
And then this is actually a third interview I had today. The other guy I talked to, Glenn Drews. I don't know if that name rings a bell. Yeah.
I know Glenn well. Yeah.
Yeah. What a great guy.
I'm doing his old gig now. I've been doing the Sesame Street gig for the last 10 years. He did Sesame Street before. There's one person in between us, but he did Sesame Street for a long time. Yeah, Glenn's a great cat. Great guy.
So that stuck out. I'm like, as I was looking at his stuff this morning before I started, I thought, wait a minute, I thought that was Kenny that was on the Sesame Street gig. And of course, yeah.
He did it for a long time, I think like 20 years or something, or, he did it for quite some time. I'm not sure about this. Maybe in 10 years. I really don't know for sure, but I know he did it for quite some time.
Yeah.
And,
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, they had a turnover in the music department. Sesame Street fired the entire department, and replaced them with some new guys they brought in to do the music. They wanted to modernize the music, and so the new guys brought in their own crew of musicians to use. There was a different trumpet player for the first year. Another good friend of mine, Frank Green, did it for a year. For whatever reasons, didn't work out. I think it was a mutual decision. And then they called and asked if I'd be interested. So I've been doing it since. I've been doing it for 10 years now, Sesame.
What a cool thing to put on a resume, right?
Yeah.
Sesame Street trumpet player.
Oh, it's an amazing gig. It's a really cool gig. Really good people, man. Really fun people to work with, and extremely highly efficient, probably the most highly efficient of any of the gigs that I do is, I gotta say, Sesame Street. They're really, really good. They really got it together, every one of them.
Getting what needs to be done in the shortest amount of time. Is that what you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, just taking care of business, like the music when it comes in. Joe Feidler writes most of the music for the organization, for the band, and every articulation is marked. Every cutoff is marked. If it's off on 3, it's there. If it's long, short, everything is just marked perfectly. You go in and he sends you the music ahead of time. I usually don't look at it unless he gives me a heads up if there's some piccolo trumpet or something that I don't normally play a whole lot, so I can practice it for a week before I go in. But other than that, I usually don't look at it, and I don't need to, because I know as soon as I go in, I sit in the chair. The music is immaculate. So the red light goes on, and we lay it down. Most of the time we sight read it the first take, and boom, we're done with that one. It's the engineer is amazing. He's just total pro all the way around. It's a pleasure to work with those cats.
So when you do those recordings, are those weekly?
Yeah. Now we're doing them remotely. So now everybody in the band records from home. So we start off with a meeting on Monday with the Sesame Street band. Before that, Joe Fidler sends us all the music that he's written. I print it out, the trumpet parts that I need to play. There's not trumpet on everything, but the parts that I need to play that week, I print everything out. I look through it. Then we have our band meeting Monday morning at 10 a.m. And then our engineer, Tyler, sends us the Pro Tools sessions, and we get to work. I'm kind of the lead horn. It's trumpet, trombone, and saxophone and woodwinds. Our saxophone player doubles on all the woodwinds. He's a phenomenal flautist, piccolo, clarinet, bass clarinet, oboe. He does it all. So there's a lot of stuff that's just woodwinds that, but when it's the three horns, generally the trumpet is the lead. So I get my stuff done and send it in, and then they get the Pro Tools session with the trumpet on it, so the other horns can match my, phrasing, pitch, articulation, whatever. We get it done. I think we do basically an episode a week, and it's done by Tuesday. It's just a really good band. Everybody can play. It's top notch all the way across the board.
So if that were your only gig, would you be satisfied?
Well,
I'm kidding. I mean, I know it's not a huge deal, and you don't have an audience, right? You don't have a live audience.
Well, no, we don't have a live audience. I mean, there's a lot to it that way that I love. It doesn't pay enough for it to be my only gig, to be able to make a living off just doing that.
Yeah.
So there's that. But it's a fun gig. I love it, and I remember actually hanging out one time. I was on a gig with Glenn Drews. I think we were playing at Birdland, and Glenn, I was talking to Glenn about Sesame Street, so when he was doing it, and I said, that's such a cool gig. That's awesome. And I told him, because I just had a son, and every time I'd start to practice, my son would come and grab the bell of my horn and pull it away and say, no, play Elmo's song. So I'd have to play da 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 for Darren, for my son. And so I told Glenn that, thought it was funny. And Glenn said, man, that's a deep gig. It's amazing. He told me, he said, when you think about it, a lot of kids, the first time they ever really hear a trumpet, it's in that TV show that they're watching.
Right.
Kids start watching that from the time they're born, and it's true, and it's kind of cool to think about that. And,
Right.
I had no idea that one day the gig would come to me. I wasn't expecting it at all, when it came, and it's like, wow, cool. I'd love to do it. So it's a fun gig, man. I dig it.
Well, and it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind, and who would think, I wonder who the trumpet player is, right? It's like when you watch Jurassic Park and, Malcolm McNabb is the guy
Right.
playing on that. It's like nobody thinks about who's on the other
Well,
end
we
of
do.
that. Well, yeah, you're right. But, the general public doesn't think about
Yeah.
that. It's kind of, and if somebody realized that, holy cow, like with Malcolm, you played on how many soundtracks,
Yeah.
right? Or if somebody finds out
What a
you
legend.
play Elmo, right? You play the Sesame Street thing. So
I play kazoo too, by the way,
is that a double?
I guess so. Yeah. But I think anybody who saw Incredibles 2 was thinking, who is that trumpet player, whether they're a trumpet player or not.
Right.
And that was Wayne, right?
Of course.
Remember? Oh my God, what a player. Bad dude.
Yeah, I talked to him. I interviewed him once, and then I called him up just to chat a couple of weeks ago. Just nice guy.
Yeah.
super laid back. But yeah, so you've got another pretty cool gig going on, right?
What's that?
Well, Lincoln Center.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been doing that actually about the same amount of time I got the Lincoln Center gig first. I'm in my 11th season now with Jazz at Lincoln Center.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. And I started Sesame Street just a few months after I got the gig with Wynton with the Lincoln Center band. So yeah, that was a good year for me.
Yeah, right. Well, how did that gig come about?
Well, I've known Wynton for a long time. I first met him years ago, man. He put together a band for a series of videos called Marsalis on Music. And it was a younger band who we played up at Tanglewood, opposite the Tanglewood Orchestra, the student orchestra, under Seiji Ozawa. He was conducting them, and played the Nutcracker. The Nutcracker.
Oh, right.
So they play Tchaikovsky. We play the Duke Ellington, Billy Strayhorn version of Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker, and compared and contrasted. Showed it was a very interesting series of videos where we did that. And they did other things too. Yo-Yo Ma was involved in it, and some pretty cool people. But that's when I first worked with Wynton. I met him when I was in college. He doesn't remember, but I met him when I was a student at Berkeley School of Music. But that's the first time I worked with him, and that's around the time, I think just a little bit before that, they actually started. It was then called the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra. And it was a different group of musicians from one gig to the next, depending on what the gig called for or who was available, or there's all kinds of factors that worked into that at that time. And it was a pool of players, and it was like that for a number of years. And sometimes Lou Soloff would be in the section, or John Faddis, or Nicholas Payton, or Russell Gunn, Dan Miller, Roger Ingram. It was a mix of a lot of different people. Of course, Marcus Printup, Ryan Kaiser. Pevin Everett, I think did it. Randall Haywood. A lot of different players went through the band, and it was great. It was a great band, and I was freelancing at the time. I was doing that when they would call. I was also working with the Mingus Big Band. I was also working with George Grunt's concert jazz band, and I was also working with John Hendricks. A group he called John Hendricks, the John Hendricks and whoever that's a gig I would take. I learned a long time ago, you don't upset people by telling them by canceling them. And so I made it a policy early on not to cancel on people unless it was like a big tour, as opposed to like a one-nighter somewhere or whatever. So I was freelancing. I was, I always got along great with Wynton. He was super cool. But for like 4 or 5 times in a row, I had to tell him no, because I'd been hired to do other things already. And, and I had my little policy in place, and I felt it was respectful, and, so when you tell somebody no a few times, you start to go down the list and fall off the list. And so I didn't do it for a while. I didn't get called for a while after that. And I didn't take it personally. I understood it's business, and you got to go with who's going to be available. And I hated to have to turn down gigs with Wynton Marsalis, because he's always been one of my idols, man. He's in, and I love playing in the band. But so there's a few years went by that I didn't do anything with the band. And then he, for whatever reason, started calling me back in to sub here in Seoul or some gigs, and turn off chiming. Okay. So I started back in subbing again, probably about 12, 13 years ago. And then Sean Jones, who I was subbing for Sean most of the time. He wasn't able to make a sound check, they call me. He wasn't able to make a rehearsal, they call me. He couldn't make a tour, and they called me. Wynton had the office call me. And I did a good enough job. There was one tour that was a little rough because I had kidney stones during the tour and ended up in the hospital and had to miss a couple of gigs as a result, but other than that, I think it went well. And then eventually Sean left the band and they needed somebody. And so Wynton called and asked if I'd be interested in doing it full time. And I said, of course. Yeah, man, I'm in. So that was, I joined full time in 2010, in June of 2010 is when I joined full time.
So I find it funny that you say must have been doing a good enough job. I mean, it's self-deprecating. I get it. But I mean, come on, you're a great player.
Well, it's not self-deprecating, it's honest. We all make mistakes, and I make mistakes just as much as anybody else. And, we all do. Wynton makes mistakes, believe it or not. The person who makes a few mistakes is probably Ryan Kaiser. But I'm just being honest, man. There are a lot of great players out there and a lot of people that I respect who I consider to be better players than I am that could very well have gotten the gig. But there are more factors into it than just, playing. I mean, I play well. I'm a fine player. I'm not going to, I can play,
Yeah.
and, but there are other factors that are important in working in getting a gig as well, getting along with other people, showing up on time, those kinds of things. And it's amazing, but some people actually have trouble with just showing up on time. Some people have trouble with being able to get along with other people, and, it's a shame, but that's part of the gig, man. You're on the road with this band under normal times, we're in COVID right now, but
Right.
under normal times, we're on tour 5 to 6 months out of the year. Like half the time we're on the road, and you're living on buses, you're living in planes, you're seeing the same people every single day, going to the sound check, you're living with everybody, you have your own hotel rooms, but you're around everybody all the time, and you got to be able to get along with people, man. I mean, we all have our moments. I certainly do. I'm far from perfect. This is something I tell my students all the time, man. It's okay to make a mistake, and that's one of the great lessons that music teaches us. As long as your intention is 100%, that's what really matters. You're going to chip a note, you're going to make a mistake, but if your intention is there, that's really what matters. And the same is true of everything else in life, really. If you're coming from a place of love, from a place of learning and growing, then you're ahead of the game. I make mistakes all the time in life and in music and in trumpet and everything else. But I embrace those mistakes because it's an opportunity to learn and grow. And that's what life is about to me.
I can't remember the last time I had a perfect performance.
I never have.
It doesn't happen, right?
No.
There's always got to be something. And even if it is close to perfect, right? You're still thinking back to, man, I know I could do that better next time.
Yeah. I've had performances where I don't miss a note, but could I play with more nuance, with more musicality, more feeling? Absolutely. I mean, there's something else I tell my students is we strive for perfection, but perfection isn't real. Perfection does not exist.
Right.
The only place perfection exists is within imperfection, and so strive for that, but accept where you're at and feel good about doing your best at all times. And you're going to be cool.
I remember hearing the band, and I don't remember how long ago this was. It was long enough ago that Seneca Black was playing lead.
Yeah. Seneca's a great player, man.
Is he still around?
Yeah. He's well, I haven't seen him in a little while. Last time I saw him, he did some gigs with us with Ruben Blades that got recorded and put out as a live CD. I don't think I've seen him since then. Actually, no, I have. I saw him one time playing with Arturo Farrell's band at Birdland. Yeah, Latin jazz group. It was a continuation of the Chico Farrell Orchestra, which I used to be in. And Seneca was playing lead with that band. I think that's the last time I saw him. He sounded great.
One thing I love about that band is, the charts are they're terrific. Of course, everybody plays the daylights out of them, but that's got to be a treat too, right? To be able to sit down and play like some of the best arrangements.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. Absolutely.
So how much time do you guys actually spend rehearsing before you head out?
With Lincoln Center Band?
Yeah.
Well, we do when we're not on the road, when we're home, we have a concert at Jazz and Lincoln Center at the hall, um, which is the Rose Hall up at in Columbus Circle. It's in the Time Warner Center, and we have a season that's more or less on par with what they do with the New York Philharmonic. So we have a season in town that we do of, I think it's 10 to 13 concerts a season. Now, when I say concerts, it's concert series. So we'll do,
Right.
so with let's say it's, for sake of let's just say it's 10. So for those 10 concerts, we'll rehearse generally 3 days. So we'll rehearse either Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then we'll perform either Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or just Friday, Saturday. So we'll perform at least twice for each concert,
Okay.
sometimes 3 times, and sometimes we'll tour that concert as well. We'll take that music on the road and tour with it. But we generally, for each one of those concerts like that, we'll rehearse 3 times. And each one of them is, for the most part, is new music coming in. Now and then we'll do concerts where it's, a Duke Ellington concert for a gala, or the music of Count Basie or Fletcher Henderson or something like that, where we'll focus on that music and really, really focus on that specific way of playing. But most of the time, it's new music that's arranged by members of the orchestra. We've got 10 or 11 members of the orchestra who write and arrange music for the band, which is a first. I've never been in a band where it's like that. Every other band, like Maria Schneider's band, which I've subbed in several times, it's all Maria's writing, all her writing and arranging. The Mingus Big Band, which I was a member of for about 20 years, actually. It's a couple, like 2 or 3 people who do the majority of the writing for the band. And then Cy Johnson is one of them. He doesn't even play in the band. This particular band, 10 or 11 of the members of the band, the active members, do the writing for the band, the majority of the writing. Now and then Wynton will get somebody from the outside to do something for a specific thing for whatever reason, but mostly it's split up between all of us, which is really a treat, but so we're always getting new music to rehearse throughout the season. We're writing for each other. We're challenging each other. We're messing with each other. Saxophones like to try and write impossible things for the trumpet, and we write things for the flutes and piccolos just to mess with them, and it's a lot of fun. But we rehearse a fair amount. But before we go on tour, we rehearse for a few days, make sure we've got our repertoire together that we're going to do on that particular tour. And, so the band rehearses a fair amount under normal circumstances. Right now, we can't,
Sure.
but, yeah, I
So
love rehearsing.
So you are one of the arrangers then. You say 10 out of the 11. You're part of that 10.
I've
So
written and arranged several things for the band now. Yeah.
Where'd you pick up that skill and talent?
Well, I've always written music from the time I was a kid. My brother is a great writer arranger. We used to live around the corner from a gentleman named Don Hanna, who in Las Vegas was legendary. He's one of the greatest orchestrators ever. He, worked with, people like Barbra Streisand, and, he was kind of the guy, and he gave my brother lessons. My brother just walked around the corner, and he and my dad were friends. They worked together. Don played tuba and arranged and orchestrated, and my dad played percussion, and they were buddies. And so my brother used to study arranging with him. And so when I was a little kid, I'd watch my brother and see all this stuff he was doing. I remember when I was like 11 or 12 years old, I first started playing trumpet, and I saw my brother doing that, and I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, go listen to this and start to write it out, transcribe it and start to write it out." And it was Maynard playing Maria, so I transcribed Maynard playing Maria. And he said, "Then you just got to understand the chorus." So I actually tried to write a little arrangement when I was that young. Of course, I didn't finish it, and I'm sure it was horrible, but that's when I kind of started. I studied composition when I was in high school through an organization called Nevada School of the Arts. Then later at UNLV, when I went to college there, I studied composition. And then I went to the Berklee College of Music in Boston, and I studied jazz composition there, and arranging. Um, and I wrote for my own groups, sextet mostly. That's really the sound that was in my head most of the time back then. Did a lot of sextet writing and arranging. Uh, Moved to New York. I hadn't really written for big band, but I was playing in a big band weekly every Thursday with Charlie Persip, with his big band, Super Band it was called. I don't know if you know Charlie Persip, who is a dear friend. He recently just passed away. Drummer, played with Dizzy Gillespie. He's a drummer on Sunny Side Up, the record with Sonny Rollins and Sonny Stitt. Anyways, I played in his big band. I got in his band when I first moved to New York. And he encouraged anybody who wanted to write something to bring it in. So I wrote a couple things for his big band, original compositions that I brought in. And then I really didn't do a whole lot of writing for big band. I focused more on small group for a long, long time. And then just a couple of years ago, when I saw, so many guys in the Lincoln Center band, were writing for the big band, I decided to kind of give it a shot. I talked to Wynton and said, hey, I'd like to try and write something for the band at some point. So he's, invited me. He's like, that's great. We want you.
Nice.
So, my first arrangement, what was it? It was on So in Love for a tribute to Ella Fitzgerald, a concert for her. And it went pretty well, and Wynton, gave me some great advice, and I changed a few things here and there. That's one thing. It's to work with a leader like that who's open to the members of a big band doing that, and then it's opportunities to learn how to do it better, because you get it, not only do you write it, but you get to hear it back by a great band,
Right.
and then somebody can make a suggestion. Victor Goins can be sitting in the front, I'll give him a clarinet part, and you say, hey man, this might sound better in this octave, let's hear this, and you can experiment with it and learn on the fly, and it's just been a great experience for me. I feel like I've gotten better at it since we started doing it, since I started writing for the band. And I'm not sure how many pieces I've written now for the band, arrangements, compositions, something like 7 or 8, I think.
Nice.
And yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I dig it.
So you mentioned starting trumpet around, what'd you say, 10 or 11?
11, yeah.
11 years old. But obviously with an older brother in music, you were hearing all kinds of things around the house, right?
Oh yeah, well, my dad was phenomenal musician. He was first call percussionist in Las Vegas. He played with Sinatra, all the Rat Pack guys. He toured with Elvis Presley. He played with everybody. Toured with Xavier Cugat, playing Latin percussion with Xavier Cugat. My dad was an incredible musician. He was known as one of the greatest readers people ever came across. I've spoken with older musicians who worked with him, who are still talking about his skills. So my dad was a percussionist. He loved Milt Jackson. He loved Count Basie, the Modern Jazz Quartet. So I grew up hearing all those records when I was a kid. He used to have jam sessions in our garage from the time I was born, with Carl Fontana and Tommy Turk. There was just music around all the time. I used to go to rehearsals with him when he played timpani with the Las Vegas Symphony. It's now called the Las Vegas Philharmonic, but he was playing with the Las Vegas Symphony. I used to go and, take naps under the timpani while he was rehearsing with the symphony, So I was always around music. And my older brother followed my dad's footsteps and is an incredible percussionist in his own right. And his name was Dale, and Dale was a senior when I was a freshman in high school. The seniors at that time were freshmen in high school when my brother Dale was a senior. So he was a bit older than me. But he was, like, in high school, he was the top drummer probably in the state. He was working professionally on this trip when he was like 16 years old. playing with top acts and subbing for my dad, and Dale has always been an incredible inspiration, incredible musician. And he was listening to more modern music than my dad. Dale, I remember Dale having a lot of Buddy Rich records and Louis Bellson and Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And he listened to a lot of different music than my dad listened to, but also on a very, very high level. My sister listened to Donny Osmond, so that wasn't, My other brother Sheldon was a huge Beatles fan, so I heard a lot of different music growing up. It's funny because I never really paid attention to or necessarily even liked the Beatles growing up, but my brother shared his Beatles collection with me, and I put it into my iPhone. And I found myself a few years ago, I was driving and said, I feel like hearing some Beatles, so I just put on the playlist, and I sang along and knew the words to every song. So weird, man. Because I heard it growing up, but I never really paid attention. But it's amazing what hits the subconscious when you're a kid.
Right.
So anyway,
You were immersed in it. Yeah.
Yeah. I was immersed in music for sure. Through my family. Yeah.
Were you, you said your brother encouraged you to transcribe early on. Were you even trying to improvise on the trumpet early on?
I was. I didn't know what I was doing at all. I remember I started playing trumpet in 6th grade when I was 11. And in Las Vegas, they had a busing program to integrate the schools and all that kind of stuff. So 6th grade center was on the other side of town from where I grew up. And so me and a friend of mine in the neighborhood went, we took the bus back and forth every day together. He was a trombone player named Mike Kukin. And we would walk back home to our homes from the elementary school where the bus would drop us off after school. And we would usually go stop by his house because we hit his house first, and we would hang out and take our horns out and just play. And we didn't know what we were doing. We were just improvising, playing free, and, we thought we were playing jazz. We weren't, but we were mostly making noise, but we were improvising and having fun with it and communicating through improvisation, from the time I was 11 years old. And, and it was a lot of fun, and so that's how I like to start off a lot of my students, is just by simply playing free, and expressing. It's important to realize it's about expression. The music is about communication. Ultimately, half of communication is self-expression. The other half is listening, right? So, I always encourage my students to do that, to just play free. Don't worry about the construct. Don't worry about the song form. Don't worry about the key or the chords or anything. Just play. Just play. Express yourself. If it's sound, if it's a noise, if it's the sound of a chicken, whatever it is, seriously, and I think that's important for young players to understand. It's okay to just play some sounds if they express how you feel, So yeah, anyways, that's a long answer to
That's a great answer. Long or not, it's a great answer. So you mentioned students. Are these high school, college, combination of both?
I teach all different ages. It just depends on the day, but I do have an organization that I started, a nonprofit organization in my hometown of Las Vegas, dedicated to jazz education, called Jazz Outreach Initiative, JOI, or JOY, as we like to call it.
Very cool.
And we have several programs that we've started. The one we're focusing most on right now is called the Las Vegas Youth Jazz Orchestra, and it's made up of student musicians, middle school through high school. And so we do, since COVID hit, we're doing rehearsals every week, every Wednesday night online, where we have breakout rooms. We go into sectionals. We've got mentors who work with the kids on different instruments. It's really a wonderful program. We're recording 3 songs with special guests. So that, I spent a lot of time working with those kids, myself, my program director for Joy, and he's also the co-founder of the organization, Gary Cordell, who's also my best friend, and we went to college together. We studied with Walt Blanton at
Oh,
UNLV,
yeah.
who Walt was a Bill Adams student. He went to
Yeah.
Indiana University. Walt is my greatest mentor in life and music and trumpet. He was my second father, really. As same for Gary. And Gary and I decided to start this organization. And it's really an extension of our both of our mentorships with Walt.
Wow.
So Gary and I, Gary's the director. He's a director of programming, and he directs the kids in the Las Vegas Youth Jazz Orchestra. So we do that every Wednesday night, every Saturday afternoon. For all those students who are part of that, I teach jazz language. We call it jazz language with joy. And I teach that with a young man who's a student actually at Berklee College of Music, who I've known since he was a sophomore, I think, in high school. And he was part of some of our first programs that we brought to Las Vegas. And now he's gone on. He went to Eastman, and now he's transferred to Berklee. He took a year off, but he's a terrific young tenor player named Ray Logan. So I brought Ray in because he wants to get into jazz education, and I thought it'd be a good opportunity to kind of mentor him a little bit. And also he's got a lot of insight, and he thinks about things differently than I do. And so I learn a lot from him as well. And he's also closer to the kids' age, so he communicates very well with them. So it's a lot of fun working with Ray. And Gary Cordell is also at all those classes every Saturday. So we work with all those students, it's mostly high school kids. There's a couple middle school, 2 or 3 younger kids who are part of the program, but it's mostly high school. I also, I teach, adults. I have a couple adult students. I feel funny thinking the students. But I guess they are. And they offer to pay me and whatever. So that's cool. But I work with all ages of people who are interested in what I have to share. So it's I enjoy it. The older I get, the more I like teaching. The more I see that is really hopefully what my legacy will be, is through younger people and hopefully shaping them and influencing them and inspiring them.
What a great legacy. That's terrific.
Well, you're doing the same thing, man.
Well, I guess I hadn't thought about it that way, but yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
So many great players in the past and so many great players in the present, yourself, Sean, Marcus. In fact, I heard Marcus at the ITG down in Miami last year. Holy cow. And I met him. We were actually supposed to do an interview, but we still haven't connected. But great player. Bria Schoenberg's another one that I'm a big fan. Ingrid Jensen, I know she's still, isn't she there in New York?
Yeah, I actually went to college with Ingrid. We went to Berklee together. She is now heading up the jazz program at the Manhattan School of Music. Ingrid.
Very cool.
She's doing great things. She's got her own records. She's in this fairly new group. I think it's called Artemis, all-female jazz group. They're just phenomenal. Ingrid is really doing a lot of great things.
Yeah, but I mentioned all these current players. So when you're with your students and you're steering them towards who to listen to, who do you choose from? And I mean, both past and present.
Well, I let them choose who they like, I don't tell anybody who they need to listen to. That's not my place, I don't feel.
Well, no, I didn't mean you need to like somebody. I'm just thinking, okay, you need to listen to.
I'll give them options, and in fact, I was just speaking with Gary last night about our program with the Las Vegas Youth Jazz Orchestra, and we're actually compiling a list for each instrument in the band with 3 different artists that we recommend that they check out, and specific recordings. So, obviously for the trumpets, I want them to check, the ones that I'm going to recommend to check out are Clark Terry, for his lyricism, his masterful plunger playing. The one I'm going to recommend, the specific recording, is Oscar Peterson Trio +1. And Clifford Brown with strings, his phrasing, his tone, his lyricism, his nuance. And then we're discussing whether the third one should be Miles Kind of Blue or Maynard Ferguson Live at Jimmy's. We might make it 4 because they're completely different, but they're both just incredible, and given that we have kind of 2 like heavy duty jazz guys already, we're kind of leaning towards Maynard. And because Miles Davis Kind of Blue is already, we've also created a top 20 CDs for the entire band to check out, and Kind of Blue is already in that one. So, we're doing instrument specific things that we're going to recommend for each kid to check out, and for the trombones, I want them to check out Carl Fontana because he lived in Las Vegas and he's a Las Vegas legend. Of course, J.J. Johnson and Tricky Sam Nanton, because I think it's important to check out heavy plunger players. Now, there are a lot of great modern players too, and I'm not just watching over them, but those are players that they can still get to hear live. And, if I were to call, if I called, Josh Redman on the phone and said, hey man, who are your biggest influences? He's going to tell you, John Coltrane and Dexter Gordon. He's going to name the greats that came before him. So, the modern players who are great players, phenomenal musicians in their own right, who are here now, would do the same thing. They would say, man, check out the masters, check out, people, like Clifford Brown, you can buy Sean Jones records too, and Chris Bodie and Nicholas Payton. And I mean, there's so many great players, Ambrose. I mean, there's so many great players, Alex Sipiagin. There's so many great players playing today, but the students can check them out live now. So I really want them to get a sense of the tradition and where it came from.
Right.
So, we're working on that right now. It's funny you bring that up because just last night, Gary and I were speaking about that, compiling a list to give to our mentors to share with all the students, because that's a big part of the music. Like I said, the music is about communication. It's not just about expressing yourself. It's about listening, whether it's in the heat of the moment when you're playing with a quartet and listening to the drummer, the bass, and the piano while you're blowing, or if it's listening to what came before you. Listening is a very, very important factor in the development, in anybody's personal development with this music and the development of the music overall. It's very important to listen to and recognize what happened before. And listen.
This semester at UIndy, I made it a requirement, and I assigned an artist each week. So all my students have to find something on YouTube to listen to, and then they need to write a well-written paragraph. I want them to not just turn it on and listen in the background. I want them to listen. What's the word you used earlier? Listening intensely or deeply, listening deeply to something.
Right.
And I've actually gotten comments from some of my students. They're like, I'm really digging doing this. And I'm thinking, well, you should be doing this on your own, right? But I'm sorry, I had to make it part of the syllabus.
Yeah.
Get them to do that.
You would think, but, not everybody does. I did, I still do. There's one record, it's my favorite recording of anything ever. Miles Davis, live recording of My Funny Valentine. That particular track, I think it was at Carnegie Hall, and I'll just turn off all the lights and sit down, close my eyes, and just listen to it and breathe with it. And I always hear something new. It's always fresh. It always puts me into a different state of mind. It's almost like a meditation for me to do that. And it's just, I don't want to sound corny, man, but to me, it's enlightening when I do that. It takes me consciously to another place that's of a higher consciousness when I do that. With that specific recording, for some reason, that recording affects me like that, but
there are a couple of classical pieces that do that for me. I can identify with that. So, It's funny going back to Maynard. I grew up in a generation that knew Maynard for the high notes. But you go back far enough, you realize what a great jazz player he was.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I think, man, I wish people would listen more to that. I mean, he became extremely commercial, with like late 70s, early 80s with some things, but I mean, still great stuff, but yeah, you go back to MF Horn 1 and 2. And the one you mentioned was it Live at Jimmy's?
Live at Jimmy's. That's my favorite Maynard of all time. I just love that record, man.
Is that the one with Fox Hunters on it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, the band is just swinging, man, on that record. Maynard is in just perfect form, man. He just kills it, you know.
Yeah.
I love listening to some records he did as a sideman too, early on. You know, there's that record, I think it's called In the Land of Hi-Fi. It's Georgie Auld, and his orchestra, swinging in the land of hi-fi or something like that. And Maynard was splitting the lead chair with Conrad Gazzo
Oh,
on that record. And to hear the two of them playing together in a section and hear the difference in styles. Now, Maynard was very young. I think he was like maybe 19 or something. He was a kid. But to hear the two of them together and the difference in styles, the difference in sound, Gazzo's sound was bigger. I mean, nobody had a bigger sound than Maynard, but I mean, Maynard would play up an octave from Gazzo at times, you know, and they worked out in the section, and it's incredible to listen to that. If you haven't heard that record, check it out, man. Georgie Auld, A-U-L-D.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
So, who are you listening to these days? Everybody?
Yeah, I mean, whatever I've got, you know, right now I've got about 6 or 7 recording projects on my music stand over here. It's to my left. You can't see it, but I'm going to be recording a thing with UNLV Jazz Ensemble. They asked me to record for to be guest on their next CD. Recording Tones for Jones Bones, the Herbie Hancock tune. And I actually got to play that tune with Herbie. Or not Herbie, I'm sorry, Chick Corea. I got to play that tune with Chick. And so I've been listening to Chick's recording of that. I've been listening to, this is a big band version. I'm all of a sudden drawing a blank on Duke Pearson's big band recorded it, and I think the trumpet soloist was Bert Collins. So I've been checking that out and practicing along with that. I'm not, you know, I actually learned those, you know, the original solo on that tune a long time ago. I'm not looking to do that, but I practice along with it and kind of play just to get fluid over those changes. They're tricky. So that's what I'm checking out right now. The other project or one is actually my own for my nonprofit organization. Another one is with another sax player, a friend of mine, named Rick Keller. And we're recording one of my tunes. We're also recording, I don't have my horn with me right now. It's on the other side of the room, but, beep, boo, dee, doo, dee, 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 doo, dee, dee, My Ideal. We're doing that in the original key that Kenny Dorham recorded it in, which is the key of D. So I'm checking out KD and the way he played on My Ideal. And so, you know, I listen to music that if I'm about to record something, I'm studying. I'm studying it and working on it. When I just put music on, you know, sometimes it just depends on my mood. What I put on, most of the time, I just will put my iPhone. I don't have an iPod anymore that I really like. You know, I use my iPhone because it's got more space in it than my iPod. So, but I just put iTunes on random, and whatever comes up comes up. I don't like to force myself to listen to anything specific unless I'm preparing for something. The rest of the time, I like to see what comes because, you know, I tend to listen to more music that way. I tend to listen, you know, I listen to things that I normally wouldn't choose. You know, I'd rather have it come to me and say, oh, what is that? And go and look it up, you know, so, but that's a good question. I actually recently did a trumpet hang via Zoom. It wasn't broadcast or recorded or anything. It was a friend of mine, Alex Sipiagin, great trumpet player. We played together for years and years in a lot of different bands. He put together a hang with a friend of his, with Sergei Nikarikov, the classical trumpet player from Russia, and Randy Bracker and myself and Mike Rodriguez. You know, he just put together a Zoom hang for us all just to meet and hang out. So I've done a couple of those with Sergei, and I've been a fan of his for many years, and for my money, I think he's probably the greatest trumpet player alive today. Um, I just I think the world of him. He's just phenomenal, and I'm really grateful to Sipiogan, to Alex Sipiogan, for introducing me to him and getting to know him a little bit. And I actually asked him that question. We were just hanging out talking, and I said, "Man, what are you listening to these days during COVID? What's inspiring you?" And he said, "Let me tell you, I'm not listening to anything. I'm embracing the silence," which I thought was so profound, because somebody like him, he doesn't even play in a brass quintet or an orchestra. He stands in front of an orchestra as a soloist. He's constantly working on new music and constantly performing, touring the world performing, always working on music. I don't imagine he's ever had a break in his life. So he said he's actually embracing the silence.
Yeah.
He's practicing, but he's kind of chilling a little bit.
Yeah.
Not-
I got to interview him last year at ITG again in Miami. And of course, all the people, now don't take offense at this, but all the people I've interviewed, he was one of those that made me the most anxious beforehand, just because, I put him on, I think we all put him on a pedestal, right?
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
holy cow, he's one of the most laid back,
Yeah.
quiet, it was a great interview. And, so anyway, speaking of practicing, I can tell you've been practicing. COVID is not maybe caused you to take too much time off, right? I can see, you've had the horn on the chops.
Well, I've been on and off. At first I was really good, practicing a lot, and COVID hit New York so hard. I had around 15 friends who died.
Oh man.
15 people in my building died. They weren't all friends of mine. I have people outside of my building who passed away. But it was devastating, man. And just so disheartening. Like, a guy jumped off the top of my building, committed suicide. I didn't know him. I saw where his body was on the ground, though, in front of my building. It was a devastating time in the spring for New Yorkers. It was very real. And I got into a funk for a while, where at first I was like really practicing a lot, and I was doing a lot of interviews, doing a lot of workshops with kids online. I was working with my team in Las Vegas, figuring out how to move forward with Jazz Outreach Initiative, given that we had to cancel all our rehearsals and what to do there and so we were very busy and scrambling, trying to figure out how to do things and sending the message to the kids that, life is about the journey, not the destination, and the journey never ends. Keep practicing. And I was trying to set the example by doing that. And I did for a while, but at a certain point, I was like, why? I ran into Jack Walrath, who lives in my building, world-renowned trumpet player, played with Charles Mingus, and he said, "Hey, Kenny, what are you up to?" I said, "Oh, man, I'm practicing." He said, "Why?" And that kind of hit me a little bit. At first, I felt bad for him. I said, "Well, to get better," but then, that kind of stuck in there. And after a while, when all this was hitting, I got into a depression. I got low, and I stopped playing for a little while. It's like, man, why? He's right. Is how I felt. And then projects would come up, so I'd practice and get it together enough to do whatever recording project, with a band, with Lincoln Center, with Wynton, or with whatever I was doing. And I was doing Sesame Street all along. We got set up so I could record at home. I got a really nice ribbon mic, and I'm running Pro Tools, so I've maintained my chops enough to be able to record for Sesame Street every week. Which there was a period in there where that was what kept me going. I was in a real funk. I was really struggling with depression. I'm not going to lie. It was like, what's happening here? I've dedicated my life to this. And now there's, everything is canceled. Every tour we had was canceled. Every concert, it's like, oh my God. Sesame Street kept me going. It kept me maintaining my chops enough to be able to record every week for Sesame Street. And then other projects would come in. I got called to do a thing with this great piano player singer named Sarah McKenzie. She's Australian. She lives in London. I think she has a home in LA as well. I hadn't met her, but I still haven't met her in person, but I got a email from her manager asking if I would record a song of hers. I'm like, I don't know, I'll send it to him. Let me take a look. And it was for 4 trumpets, and it was a lot of playing. It was technically had a lot to it. And I was like, man, I'm not in shape to do this. I was thinking to myself, I'm not up to it. I'm not up to the task, but I wanted to be, and it kind of gave me a little more purpose, so I said, you know what, I'll do it, and we worked everything out, and I practiced my butt off for several days and got my chops together and was able to do it. It's for trumpet section and rhythm section, 4 trumpets, and it's a blow. It's hard. It's got a lot of notes, and but I worked it up and I was able to do it, and I got it done, and I felt great. It's like my spirits were lifted. It's like, wow, look what the trumpet does for me. It lifts me out of a funk. It felt great to play, and of course then I said, okay, well, I'm going to take a break now. And then I started getting into a funk again, and I like so many other instrumentalist musicians, we spend so much of our time practicing, and we put so much worth on who we are as a person, being defined by how we play our instrument that day. And I'm guilty of that. And I realized, and this is something I've addressed a long time ago, as a human, as a man, as a person, or I thought I had addressed, and it's come up again. It's like, man, when I'm not playing, I'm not happy. I need to play every day. I need to, and I saw a friend of mine put up that he had practiced 100 days in a row. It's like, wow, that's great. I've probably not practiced like 7 or 8 days in a row, and so I've just, this week, in fact, rededicated myself to daily practice, so I need to get to it today. I haven't started yet, but I was up late last night. I was up till like 7:30 in the morning. I couldn't get to sleep. Talked to my son, and my son lives in Turkey. So I talked to him like at 7
Wow.
something, and finally went to sleep about 7:30. So I woke up late today, but as soon as we finish this, I'm going to jump on the horn and start practicing.
Good.
But,
Well, if it's any comfort, you're not alone in the way
no.
you felt through all of that. I mean, it's amazing, the principal trumpet players of some major orchestras and, jazzers like yourself. I mean, everybody, it's the same thing. It's like the rug's completely pulled out from underneath you. It's like, now what? And,
Yeah. I mean, just today, just today, they announced the Broadway shows in New York are all going to be closed through May 2021. The earliest they'll open up would be June 2021.
Yeah.
That's devastating, man. I mean, I used to, I was a Broadway trumpet player for a number of years. That's what I did. That's how I made a living. And I have a lot of friends where that's what they do. And it's, how do you pay rent? How do you, I mean, it's just devastating what's happening. And I have a lot of friends who've left town, who moved out of New York. One of my best friends, a great trombone player, Clark Gayton. He's played with Sting and with Prince and with McCoy Tyner, with Wynton and Mingus Big Band. He's, one of the greatest trombone players alive. And he left. He had to leave New York. He gave up his apartment. It was like, man, work has dried up. There's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, who I was talking to earlier today, the Elvis impersonator, he's right there in Brooklyn. I told you, he's like, but look, we're in New York. We're New Yorkers. We're going to come back. You guys have rebounded from so many different things.
Yeah, we will. It's going to take some time.
Yeah.
But we will.
Yeah. So, well, I don't want to end on a down note, but, look,
it's not a
but
down
it's
note.
reality, but it is it's what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, it's, you know what? I mean, we can shift it super quick because it really isn't a down note. It's the reality of the situation that we're in right now for various reasons. We're in this situation. It is what it is. Um, we're here. But back to the message that I tell my students is life's about the journey, not the destination. So you can't have expectations. You can't be working towards this tour that you're hoping is going to happen a month from now. That's not what it's about. What it's about is the process. How do you deal with things in the moment? It's about being present and find the beauty in the moment and the opportunities that are presented to us as a result, like getting to talk with you right now. You know, like the opportunities that I've been able to create for the students in my programs in Las Vegas. I set up we call them roundtable discussions. When they record a tune, we bring in a guest artist that is tied into that tune. So the first one we did was Marcus Prindup's arrangement of Armageddon by Wayne Shorter. That was our favorite tune that they were rehearsing. So they recorded that, you know, in the way we have to record now, and put a recording together with the kids playing that. And then we brought in Marcus Prindup to do a Zoom call with the kids, a roundtable discussion. So they got to meet Marcus. The next one we did Little Darlin' from the Count Basie Library.
Oh, yeah.
So I called Scotty Barnhart, the leader of the Count Basie Orchestra, great trumpet player, great friend of mine. Asked him, would you come in and talk with the kids? He's like, absolutely. So he came in and did a roundtable discussion with the kids. Man, that changed these kids' lives. This little 11-year-old trumpet player played the solo on Little Darlin'. Scotty invited him, said, the next time when we're back to touring, the next time the Count Basie Orchestra comes through Las Vegas, I want you to come on stage and play the solo Little Darlin' with the Count Basie Orchestra. To an 11-year-old kid, he said that and meant
Nice.
it. You know, the next one we did was Victor Goines' original composition called The Business of America is Business. And we did that, and Victor Goines and Wynton came in and did the roundtable discussion with the kids. Now we just did another one. We just recorded Splanky from the Count Basie Library. We invited Dennis McCrell, legendary drummer who played with the Count Basie Orchestra, and he also went to UNLV in Las Vegas. So he came in and did a Zoom roundtable discussion. You know, and we've got several more of things like that planned. So these are opportunities these kids are getting to meet world-class legendary musicians. We set up a Q&A with Charles McPherson. I mean, my God, he's a living legend, man. Charles McPherson is one of the greatest alto sax players who's ever lived, you know, and the kids got to talk with Charles McPherson himself. You know, so the opportunities that we're able to create through the situation we're in are great. And there's so much positivity in those opportunities for the students and for us as educators and as musicians. I'd never met Sarah McKenzie before, and now she contacts me out of the blue. She's heard me play with Wynton before, and she liked my playing and asked would I do this with her. Mm-hmm. And I checked out all of her, you know, not all of it, but a lot of the stuff she's put up on YouTube and whatnot. And I'd never met her, and man, she is incredible. So I've gotten to connect with somebody I otherwise wouldn't have, you know, because of that opportunity. So there's a lot of positives we can take from this, from what's going on. So whereas it's been difficult for everybody, but I'll leave it on this note. And it's something I heard Wynton say one time in a master class to a filled auditorium of probably like 2,000, 2,500 kids, students. And Wynton said, there's a positive and a negative side to every situation we're ever going to be in. He said, it's important to remember this, to be aware of the negative side, but don't dwell on it. Focus on the positive, focus on the positivity. And Wynton, at that time, he said, I'll use an example for you. What's the most negative, most devastating thing that can happen? Death. You lose a loved one. Somebody you love passes away. If you can find positivity in that moment, then you're doing all right. And look at what he did when his dad passed.
Yeah.
I don't know if you read his statement that he put out publicly. He found so much positivity, so much love, so much nuance in such a difficult personal situation for him. That was such a beautiful lesson in finding something positive in a very difficult negative situation. And we're all having to do that constantly these days. And so, you know, when I was bringing up the, you know, negative, the difficult things I'm going through and have gone through, I wanted to bring that up because I know everybody's dealing with that. So it's important for all of us to know we're in it together, you know, but let's focus on the positive, you know, because it's very, very important, man. And we got to uplift each other at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I can't imagine, you know, they say out of great suffering comes great art, you know, and you think about getting to the other side of this and how much music, how much dance, how much literature is going to come out of all of this. I mean, you could look at all of that as a positive,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Uh, yeah. So,
Wynton wrote a new piece. In fact, he's touring with it right now. They're touring with the septet. They can't tour with the whole big band right now for Lincoln Center, but they put together the septet with Wynton and Ted Nash, Walter Blanding, Elliot Mason is the front line with the rhythm section. Wynton wrote a new suite for the septet called Democracy, dealing with, you know, issues that we're all facing right now in an election year. And I haven't heard the piece yet, you know, but there's an example of art coming of this situation we're in, you know, so that's a positive too, you know. So yeah, to your point.
and this has been great.
Yeah.
I appreciate you waking up. I know you hadn't been up or asleep for very long before you did this, but
No, that's cool, man. That's good to meet you,
yeah.
man.
Likewise. And hopefully someday, you know, we'll be able to meet in person, whether I make it to the East Coast or, you know, you come through Indianapolis at some point.
Yeah, we'll hang out. We'll go out for some food with Mark
Somewhere.
around.
Yeah, sure. So, well, listen, I wish you the best. Thanks again for being my guest on this, and stay healthy.
All right, thank you. You too, man. Be well.
Thank you. And I'll let you know when this comes out.
Sounds
All right.
good.